we want to get more educated on this topic before making an affirmative declaration, which, again, is one of the things that brought you here tonight. So just so you know that progress has been made on that front. Subsequent to that meeting, I sent the members of the committee and the entire board a number of pieces of information from the NASA website on climate change. I sent them the text of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change Fifth Assessment Report. I sent them the report of the Interagency Working Group of the World Health Organization on the nexus between climate change and social inequality. So there's been, I mean, these are these are my current files on the topic. So there's been quite a bit of work done. I did also undertake a sort of survey of our curriculum. These are my brief notes on it. I have a hard copy if you want it. Just looking at how climate change is addressed, in the scope and sequence of grades 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's certainly a topic that is in the curriculum now. If we have failed to deliver that content to your grandson, that's on us, and we're sorry. And we'll certainly try to ensure that does not happen to future students. I think that this board is not unaware of the gravity of the issue of climate change and its consequences, and I don't think that our teachers in Piscataway are unaware of it either, but I think it's an important topic that you bring up. As I said, policy will reach out to discuss with you. We're currently just finishing up a review and rewrite of the entire policy manual and the accompanying regulations, which is about 2,000 pages of text that we've reviewed, so we've been a little bit tied up. I know that's not what you want to hear, but it is true. We've been working hard, but we should be completing that review in July. So I'll have either myself or David reach out to you. We'll take up the issue in committee again.
I'm available to help in any way I can.
Okay.
Let me know.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Do I have a motion to close public session?
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Item number 11, fiscal planning and operations. Dr. Connors?
Be it resolved that the following motions identified as items A through T be approved as presented.
I just wanted to call the board's attention to item number H. And see some Sodexo representation is here with us this evening. So if you just go ahead and call the roll.
If I could just make a couple comments, is that I want to thank our business office for dealing with this much information and this much awarding of contracts, et cetera. It's a big job. When we sit down at the fiscal, planning and operations committee, our business administrator gives us a lot of detail, and today I wrote the report of our meeting last night. There's a lot here. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. There's a lot of great information that gets sent out ahead of time, and just think about this. I mean, this is like $13 million for this month, but this impacts a lot of what's happening going forward. And just wanted to thank our business office for that.
Thank you.
Okay, before we call the roll.
There's also representation from whatever the new name of the company is, right? But it's Source for Teachers and Mission One. I know you're representing the renamed companies.
And before we call the roll, does anyone else have any other questions or comments on anything? And I know that.
I'll just draw the board's attention to item R. That item was discussed in fiscal committee last night. It's a bid award but I'll just highlight that, as Dr. Connors mentioned, is one of many on the agenda. As for paving up at the high school, and there were slight modification in the bid award, but it is reflected accurately in the current agenda that's distributed.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, if we could call the roll, please.
Dr. Connors?
Yes.
Mr. Fields?
Yes.
Mrs. Hobson?
Yes.
Mr. Irwin?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Ms. Cherry?
Yes.
Mrs. Deepan?
Yes.
Mrs. Lopez?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Okay, item number 7, policy. Mr. Irwin.
Be it resolved that the following motion, identified as item A, be approved as presented.
Any comments or questions on item A? Seeing none, if you could call the roll.
Mr. Fields?
Yes.
Mrs. Hobson?
Yes.
Mr. Irwin?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Ms. Cherry?
Yes.
Dr. Connors?
Yes.
Mrs. Deepan?
Yes.
Mrs. Lopez?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Item number 8, curriculum, Mrs. Cherry.
Be it resolved that the following motions identified as items A through E be approved as presented.
Second.
Any questions or comments on items A through E? All right, if you could call the roll.
Mrs. Hobson?
Yes.
Mr. Irwin?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Ms. Cherry?
Yes.
Dr. Connors?
Yes.
Mr. Fields?
Yes.
Mrs. Deepan?
Yes.
Mrs. Lopez?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Pupil services, Mr. Johnson.
Be it resolved that the following motions, identified as items A through D, be approved as presented.
Second.
Any questions or comments on items A through D? Seeing none, if you could call the roll, please.
Mr. Irwin?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Ms. Cherry?
Yes.
Dr. Connors?
Yes.
Mr. Fields?
Yes.
Mrs. Hobson?
Yes.
Mrs. Deepan?
Yes.
Mrs. Lopez?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Item number 15, Mrs. Hobson.
Administrative and auxiliary, be it resolved that the following motions identified as items A through G be approved as presented.
Second. Any questions or comments on items A through G? Okay, if you could call the roll.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Ms. Cherry?
Yes.
Dr. Connors?
Yes.
Mr. Fields?
Yes.
Mrs. Hobson?
Yes to items A through F. G, I abstain.
Mr. Irwin?
Yes.
Mrs. Deepan?
Yes.
Mrs. Lopez?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Item number 16, committee reports. It looks like we have one committee this evening, which would be fiscal, planning and operations.
Yeah, the committee met last night. A lot of what we discussed is, we just voted on. And I'll just go through some of these items. We talked about capital improvement projects, summer projects, and other projects. But as far as the 2019-2020 budget's concerned, is that we reviewed health benefits, capital reserve, and maintenance reserve. And we're in pretty good shape. Capital projects are things that a lot have to do with construction. And if you look around town, specifically, one that stands out is an addition to Grandview Elementary School. That's scheduled for August of this year completion, so it'll be open for in September. It's got 3 classrooms, and 2 of them are kindergarten classrooms, and kindergarten classrooms actually have bathrooms in them, and since when we're discussing it, that the tiles arrive on time and the windows arrive on time, so that's why I mentioned, all the work behind the scenes by the business office. And then, always concerned about safety and security, and one of our initiatives was to actually, in a lot of the schools, put more entrance doors to create vestibules. And that's happening in several of our schools. And then you look around town, we're doing a lot of the black fencing in some of the areas, and some of the playgrounds that have, little baseball fields. There's fencing that's being replaced. The other thing that we all should be very proud of is that we just implemented our K through 8 new marquees. When you go around town, you'll see these beautiful marquees with the LED areas, with the messages. And then happy to announce that as of last night, our town planning board approved the big marquee that we worked on as a separate project for the high school. So what you're going to see is you're going to see start some construction in front of the tennis courts heading out to Route 18 that earmarks that, here you are in Piscataway, and here's our beautiful high school and our beautiful complex. It's going to have a big marquee out there. The other thing that we should be proud of is that we look at every dollar of how we're spending and where we can save. And what we've never done in Piscataway is find out our energy costs for all of the, we get our energy costs, but we don't know whether we're saving or it's more. So we hired on a synergistic energy a company that actually now we have a specialist hired by that company here that goes out in the middle of the night, says that these parking lot lights shouldn't be on, these computers shouldn't be on. And we're actually going to get a handle on some cost savings there and different strategies for saving money. The transportation, our subscription busing is going along as trended. And then we have a representative from Sodexo. Every 5 years we have to award a contract, and happy to report that we are going with Sodexo. Healthcare, we've changed to Maritime Aetna as of July 1st. And then finally in the business office is that, we're often sometimes people show up as auditors from the state, and the business office has to deal with it. And we recently had one from the Equal Opportunity Commission, and that was great, and we got a satisfactory rating there. That's my report. We'll be not meeting this summer, July or August. Our next meeting is going to be September 11th in the fall. And that's it, and thank you very much.
Any comments or questions? Does anybody have any of the dates for the summer meetings for any of the committees, if they're going to be meeting?
We're
this time?
not planning on meeting in July or
It
August
should be
unless
on
something
the
comes up.
back of your
No, I
agenda.
know, I was just sort
Oh,
of going
okay.
to tell folks.
Oh.
Yeah.
The next page.
If anyone, any of our other committees would like to share the next meeting, when it might be. But if
You
not-
know that ours is definitely not going to be July 4th.
Okay. Exactly, so there will be no meeting on July 4th. And then the next, I know that the CCCR meeting will not be until,
So CCCR meetings were canceled for a few months for various reasons. And there was not one scheduled for July, but Mrs. Hobson is taking over chair of that committee, so I guess we'll talk.
Mhm.
And if it's decided there should be one, then we can work on a date for July and we'll publish that. But other than that, there is one scheduled for August. I don't have the exact.
yeah, no,
August
that's
20th.
fine, August
20th?
20th.
Oh,
yeah.
20th.
Yeah.
Right.
And thank you, Mrs. Thompson, for stepping up and taking on the role of chair for that committee. It's wonderful, thank you.
Bill has something to say.
Just the Policy and Legislative Committee, while we didn't meet in June, because the June meeting was postponed due to scheduling conflicts with various district events, we'll be scheduling a meeting in July. We don't know the date yet, to review the Strauss SMA quadruple zero series, board bylaws. All the board members should receive my notes on the board bylaws and the cross-reference to be sure that the Strauss SMA bylaws include all of our current board bylaws, et cetera. If there were any questions or comments on those, please let me know. We'll also be reviewing the regulation series. On the legislative side, on May 18th, I attended the NJSBA's Delegate Assembly, representing Piscataway as our alternate delegate. There was one main item of business before the Delegate Assembly, which was a resolution from the Weymouth Board of Education that sought to add additional language, policy language, to the NJSBA manual, clarifying their stance on certain school funding issues. Most specifically, they wanted the districts that were considered overfunded under the SFRA formula, who will be losing aid under the S2 bill that was passed, to be restored to the pre-S2 numbers and to be held harmless for overfunding on the SFRA formula, as they had been in the past. This board had indicated support for the resolution prior to the Delegate Assembly. So I attended the assembly and voted yes on behalf of this board. The resolution, however, was defeated with 37% of the delegates in attendance voting yes versus, sorry, 37 to 63 was the vote on that. So the resolution did not pass as a result.
If I can add to that is that I also happen to be the chair of the New Jersey School Board's School Finance Committee, whose mission is to understand the school funding law in the state of New Jersey. And if this resolution would have passed, our committee was ready to make recommendations based on going back. The committee is made up of representatives from all over the state in various size districts to make recommendations about how school aid is calculated based on equalization aid is equal to your local share, your adequacy budget minus local share. And there's a lot of, the word is nebulous as to how factors that are used in various districts. And so we're ready to, and several districts already did, met with business administrators, got that detailed level of information. Local share is basically how rich your town is, and was going to look at the formula. I contacted the executive director of the New Jersey School Boards and the director of the government relations, Mike Moranchek, and they said, based on this resolution not passing, instead we're going to take a different path and look at a lot of things that go into the governor's path to progress, so that we can make some more recommendations about how to make the school funding law fairer. So with that, thank you, Bill, for covering the Delegate Assembly, and that, I think that we're not there yet on fair funding in the state of New Jersey, and it's going to take a little bit more, for some districts to catch up, and for this issue to actually eventually go away when every district gets what they really deserve in terms of the number of students that they have in their districts.
Okay. Under new business, do we have any comments?
I have one. In March, the Board of Ed resolved that each school display a "Hate Has No Home Here" sign at the school. And I now believe that these signs should be removed and that the district explore messages with similar intent that might be displayed. I'd like to propose a motion that the existing "Hate Has No Home Here" signs be removed from school property, and that messages, and I'm really, I really want it to be more teacher, principal, children involved. So I think that messages with similar sentiment be displayed, developed and displayed in all the school buildings. But the messaging would come from the teachers and the children as opposed to the sign that we resolved. That's my motion.
Point of order, Madam President, I've listened carefully. I think it's important that we get real clear what the actual motion is, because that's going to be what's either seconded or not seconded and discussed and voted upon. So if we could just get some clarity.
I was trying to make notes here. I can read to you what I heard, and you can tell me if that's acceptable or not. The existing "Hate Has No Home Here" signs be removed from school property, and messages with similar sentiment be developed by teachers and students and displayed on school property.
That's my motion.
Okay, any comments or questions on
We
that?
need a second.
I'm sorry, second.
A second.
Do we have any comments or questions on that?
Yes. When it was initially brought up, I believe the initial motion was that it was going to be there, but the administration, along with staff, would be searching for that's what I'm saying. So we had to go back, because the initial was that it has to be a sign, it's reflective, and there was sentiment back then. Some administrators didn't agree with it, and then so the sign would be up, but there would still be some type of, whether it be committee or discussion on it. That did not happen?
The motion the last time was that it was those signs and not to have the principals or the administrators do anything else. It was those signs. That was the motion last time.
Could we go back and?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
No, that is correct. I just, and for clarification, just for public sentiment, it wasn't that the principals did not agree with those signs. It was that they wanted to have a say in what goes in front of their buildings.
I mean, if we're gonna comment, I just have to say, my sentiments last time we voted on this was exactly the motion that Shalia has just raised, is that we give the administrators a chance to weigh in, which is what you just said, Alex, that they wanted the opportunity to do. And perhaps the marquees could be a way that the messages could be displayed in the building. So I would support the motion.
The wording of the motion from the March meeting is a motion to accept the donation of "Hate Has No Home Here" signs and display one sign on the grounds of each school.
Mr. Orr?
I had no opposition in March, nor do I have any opposition now to administrators, principals, teachers developing positive messages and displaying them at schools as they see fit. I'll oppose the motion as presented for the same reasons that I supported putting the signs at the schools to begin with, which I gave at length in a matter, in March and are a matter of record. There's no need to rehash them again tonight.
Dr. Connors?
At the time of that motion, there were things going on in our district where it was appropriate to send a message to our community that hate has no home in our schools, period. I agreed with the motion. We implemented it. You see the signs out there. I'm only partially in agreement with the motion. I think that there has been adequate time for the principals of the schools to do exactly what you're saying, the school communities to come up with messages. I feel, though, that by just removing those signs until that happens, it's not the right thing to do. I think leaving those signs until there is a proposal by the principals in the community as to what to replace them with, then I would consider it.
Any other comments or questions?
I'm in favor of the Sharia. I agree with what she's saying, that let's just give a freedom to the school and principal and let them to put out their own messages. So I'm in support with her.
Okay.
I'm just going to comment not on these particular signs, but I don't want to give the impression that our schools are void of
Correct.
positive messages. I think that and the marquees are a good place, I think, that we could do some external signs, but I think if you walk into any of the buildings, you're going to see lots of messages and bulletin boards that are focusing on self-esteem, creativity, self-worth. I think those positive types of messages are in all of our buildings, K-12, pre-K-12.
I agree with that. Any other comments?
Yeah. I'm trying to understand the rationale, because when the board voted on it, again, the messaging, and wanted to have the opportunity for administrators to sit down and find out a more positive message. I'm still trying to wrap my brain around why is it offensive now? All of a sudden, I'm just trying to figure out why the immediate take it down until we find another solution in the interim. That seems to work backwards for me. It seems to be saying, let's put the motion or some research into finding better wording if that's the case, and then remove. Like, I'm trying to find the rationale. Why would you just?
Well,
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, there is no, I think if you ask me personally, I think we're reading more into it by saying that by taking it down, we're actually leaving us void of any messaging whatsoever. If we go back to the meeting in March, it was, I'm going to be honest, uncomfortable for me as the president to be put in a position where it seemed as though if we did not say yes to it, that we were saying that hate did have home here. Nowhere in my tenure as board president did I ever think that that was the case in our district. Do I think that signage is important? Absolutely. Do I think that the character of our buildings and our children and our community is stronger than that? Absolutely. I don't think that what Mrs. Hobson is proposing here is to take them down because we believe that hate does have home here. And there was no opportunity, as you said, Dr. Connors, for our principals to put thought into this because we told them what to do, basically. As such, our superintendent brought it forward on that evening that the principals, it wasn't that they wanted to be void of that sort of a message. It was that they wanted to be able to post age-appropriate signs based on the needs and the specific needs of their children in their buildings. And as such, because of the moment that we were in, because we were caught off guard that evening, that is the way that it went. What Mrs. Hobson is proposing now is that we continue to have signage and messaging that is positive in our buildings, but that perhaps is not influenced in any way. And as such, the marquees being up is a wonderful place for us to allow the principals to come up with their own messages, the children to come up with their own message that they feel from their heart and what is representative of those buildings and the children that live and breathe in those buildings. And so that's basically how I feel about it, and that's maybe personal. But I think that there are other board members who are in agreement with me that we would like to, especially now that the summer is coming, give opportunity for our building principals who are doing an outstanding job to ensure that the needs of the children are being met and that the messaging is appropriate for the students.
I just feel that I'm not being heard for what I had stated, and that is, I'm in total agreement with what you said. My question is, why is the need to include in the motion to immediately take down these signs when there is no other verbiage that's been proposed to put in its place? What is the need? Why? I'd like an answer to why do we need to immediately take the signs down without having something that's been proposed to replace it. But I agree with everything that you've said. Can I get a reason as to why they need to be immediately taken down?
From my perspective, that reason is you're showing and you're telling the principals and the leaders in those buildings that you're giving them that chance to do that. Whereas, to Alex's point, the last time we were telling them, no, you can't choose how to address that message. You have to do it in a certain way. By giving them this message now to take that sign down, we're telling them, we now think that this is what you should do.
I think also that we're showing that there is an immediacy for them to take an action, the principals of the schools. As long as those signs stay up, what's the rush? I'd like them to take them down, I've had parents that stop me in my favorite spot, the ShopRite, and ask me, why is that sign still up there? What's with those signs? Don't our kids, why don't you give our kids an opportunity to say how they feel about their school? It's their school.
The same way that on the evening of March, whatever date it was, there was some immediacy to put them up. And there was no explanation for that. Being that it's my last meeting, I will say that I believe that they are politically motivated, and I'm not comfortable with
Well,
it.
I will respectively disagree because we're just faced with two issues of blackface and also AR-15s showing up on social media. So I do not agree with you that there was no immediacy. There was a specific things that happened within our district. And
I respectfully accept your opinion, and my opinion will still be on the floor. So,
Again, there was a need for immediacy, obviously because of the environment at the time. And Ms. Hobson, I believe you also agreed with it at the time. And now you're hearing verbiage from different members of the community. I haven't heard those same sentiments. We travel in some of the same circles. I haven't heard anything from administrators.
I've never
We
seen you in the ShopRite.
said some of the same circles.
Oh, okay.
no, we
Thank
see
you.
each other in ShopRite too.
But again, in terms of how those things get administered, we've done the same thing with UE Inspire. Here's the umbrella, dress it the way you need so. There's been a long time since the signage has been up there that there hasn't been a conversation, there hasn't been an outcry, there hasn't been a resolution or a change in there, or this is what it was. There was discussion about the word hate, that the hate was so simple, even I believe you commented on that self, that it's understood at a very young age, and now it's not age appropriate. I can kill us either way in terms of, we're not here to force anybody. I agree, and I like Tom's sentiments of bring something to the table. What's the immediacy? Because it actually works both ways. It's either political on one side of putting them up, it's either political on the other side for taking them down. And I agree, this is not a place for the board to really be in. And that makes the board uncomfortable when we're here for the children, that politics comes into play. And people here have sat here, have been victims of those things, and we get it. And those things need to be removed, honestly, because we're here for a specific task. So the question was, can the administrators of the schools come up? I mean, I've sat on different boards. I mean, we've mentioned tonight, I've sat on PBSIS. I've been on different things that helped increase, the culture and climate. I've sat in the original climate and culture areas where we've done those things, where we realized the broken glass syndrome doesn't work. And as a law enforcement officer, you know that there's some things that we have unintended harms. And we get that. And then it's a precedent upon us to understand when we're wrong and make corrections. So,
And that's why I made the motion.
so, right, and I hear what you're saying, that's what I'm saying. If that's the case, generally when we change something or we change policy, we have a solution to it. I don't hear a solution to it.
Well, I don't know why.
I
The
think we've-
solution
we've
is
been-
allowing the principals, the children, and the teachers to be involved in that decision because it's their school also. They're in it every day. And one of the parents that did speak to me said, I don't like the idea that the word hate is there. Well, what am I going to say to her? So,
And I think this is the perfect time right now. Majority schools are closed, very minimal traffic. So this is the perfect time, the 2 months where it gives the principal or the staff to think the verbiage and put it out there when the school starts. They can fresh start it. So this is the perfect time if that has to be done.
For clarification, and I think, unless anybody else has anything else to say, if we go